Hi everyone, welcome to the Road to 200 record reviews. I'm Chair and I'm going to be reviewing all of my extensive record collection. I'm almost at 200. By the time I create all these, it will be 200 videos. And today, our first album we're going to look at is Abba's The Album. So I'm not going to go into the context of each category that I'm ranking on in this video. If you want to learn that, just click on the other video to see what categories I'm ranking it on. But basically I'll be doing context of the album, the creation of it, the songs actually in the album, and then finally the album cover art and how it looks. Now, starting off with context, this is the only ABBA album I own. I don't own any other albums in their discography at this current time, but this was ABBA's 5th album at the time. They were dropping an album pretty much every year in the 70s. From 1973 to 1977, it was just release after release after release. So now in 1977, them releasing this, this is still a normal run-of-the-mill ABBA album. But what's interesting about this album is it actually is the highest charting album for ABBA in their entire discography until their 2021 reinvention, when they just came back for one album as grandparents. This was their best charting album in the 70s. Other than that, they don't have too much background in the creation of this album. There's not a lot of information. Once again, I'm just going off of Wikipedia and adding my own little flair to it. If you really want to deep dive into it, I bet you could find information. But what I've learned is that there's really not too much production behind the scenes, not big drama, nothing crazy. I will say something I never knew is that ABBA actually had a movie named ABBA the Movie about ABBA the album. I don't know if it was cocaine they were on or just poor creative decision making, but that is what they named their products at the time. I have not seen this movie. I don't really know what it's about. I believe it's about a journalist mockumentary is what I gathered from research. But other than that, don't have much to say. I do want to check it out though, because I would be interested to maybe do a video on just that. I've never even heard of it. Like, you kind of hear about the Beatles documentaries and stuff like that. Never heard of this, album, movie at all. But other than that, there's really no big drama or controversy with this album. It's pretty much they went in as they usually did, churned out a bunch of songs and released them as so, and did really well apparently with this album. However, context-wise, there really isn't anything that resonates me with this album. There's no emotional connection when I put this on, so it doesn't really do that much for me, and that's where that context category comes in. I'm probably going to give it a 2 out of 5 because it just doesn't do anything more than play the songs that I want to hear. But now we're into the second category, and that is the actual tracks of the songs. There's 9 songs on here. But first I want to give a quick little bit of context to each of the tracks, or some of the tracks that had a little bit of context behind them. The opening track, Eagle, is really interesting. Apparently they got it from a book. I think Benny wrote this one, reading a book called Jonathan Livingstone Seagull or something like that. Don't even know what the book's about, but apparently man was into birds. Another interesting thing about that song is it happens to be ABBA's longest song, and it's not even that long. It's just under 6 minutes, so I guess that's a little, tidbit of info there. But Take a Chance on Me is actually, the beat is from one of the band people, his running. He would make a running noise, and that was the sound they made to make Take a Chance on Me, which is pretty cool. One Man, One Woman's about marriage, which is simple, and I Wonder is about taking a risk. But other than that, not a lot of context behind the songs. Now with this album, as I said, it kind of surprises me that it's so high. It was one of their best-selling albums ever, but it doesn't really have a lot of hits to me. I mean, you have Take a Chance on Me, which is a really good song, and Thank You for the Music became popular from the movie, I would say. But other than that, these are a lot of songs that people don't know. Out of my favorites, I like those 2, and then if you throw in Name of the Game and Hole in Your Soul, those 4 songs really kind of all that do it for me with this album. So out of the 9 tracks, mathematically that gives about a 2.2 out of 5 for this category. So still decent, but nothing to write home about out of other albums I have in my collection. Now finally, the last category is album cover art, and let's just say
Oh my god, what is that?
Definitely not a fan of this one. Like I said, when I think of ABBA, I think of so many different album covers, and this is not even close to one of them. Apparently this was the only one that wasn't consented by the recording company that they usually made all the album covers. This is the one that they were like, we're gonna do our own thing. And they shouldn't have done that, because this is probably one of my least favorite album covers that ABBA does in a general. It's not terrible, it's not disgusting, but it's definitely not entertaining to me in any way. Once again, out of 5, it's probably just gonna get a 2. It's doing nothing negatively, but it's also doing nothing positive for me. But when you take all the scores of the 3 categories and put them together, that results in a total score of 6.2 out of 15, which is pretty mediocre for the Swedish pop icons. And we'll see. I don't really have any other albums by them at this time, so I don't know if they'll have time to redeem themselves during this journey. But I hope you enjoyed the first video on this road to 200 records. If you disagreed or agreed on anything I had to say, please leave it in the comments below. Also, check out the album for yourself. I kind of like people listening to it your own. That's why I kind of give context to make you maybe more interested in listening to something, or maybe, you know, to stay away from something. I would say this, you're gonna get middle of the road ABBA. It's actually not their best work, even if the charts disagree with that, but to me it's kind of very run-of-the-mill. And at our next episode, we'll be reviewing the second album in our collection. That will be AC/DC's High Voltage, so tune into that. Once again, I'm trying to keep these videos short. We have 200 to do, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.